Welcome to Star Trek Discovery. Greetings. A sometimes funny, sometimes smart podcast covering everything and all things new and old, classic, vintage, time dilation Trek. Our faithful captain, Myrriah Gossett, is on an away mission. So you're stuck with me and that guy, Paul. So it's Clyde Haynes. I'm Clyde Haynes with you, trying to man the ship while the captain is away. And with me is
Paul from the future in the 3100s or whatever. Like, it's weird because like there's a shadow hitting my glasses and I go like, oh, am I having a stroke or is it just a shadow? And I think I'm going to say shadow. But if I stroke out everyone, like, please remember me.
it's good to know. Well, we're back to Discovery. We've been talking about a lot of different Trek lately, but we are back to covering Discovery, and we are now giving a recap of previous seasons as we get closer and closer to the April date of the final installment of Star Trek Discovery. Tonight, we're going to be covering Season 2, Episodes 1 through 6.
How about we do Season 3, Episodes 1 through 6?
What did I say?
Season 2.
Yeah, so I definitely meant Season 3.
Yeah.
We're off to a great start, which is weird for me to even talk about Season 2 because
it's a temporal
so
flux.
excited.
We really jumped 900 years ahead. We're in the future, Clyde, so there's a phase variance.
Future Clyde is going to be a struggle for you guys tonight. I'm sorry. Like, you're used to past Clyde, vintage Clyde. I don't know what you're going to get with future Clyde, so we'll see how that goes. But I'm excited. Paul, you're excited? Excited?
Sure. Yeah, excited's a word. Like, as much as one can be, like, being thrown in the future as such.
All right, Paul, can you remind our listeners about some things?
Sure. And since I am that person, I will do that right now. Like, I guess I should remind everyone to subscribe to our podcast at Apple, Spotify, or YouTube. All links are at StarTrekPod.co. And if you like, love, hate, or whatever our content and you wish to support us on Patreon, consider doing so for just $2 an episode at patreon.com/StarTrekPod.
And in a moment, we're going to talk about kind of your thoughts, your recaps, your initial comments about the show. And so if you want to participate, just type capital P, capital O, capital D, capital pod in the chat if you're watching us live on YouTube. And we'll take a look at your comment or your question. We'll try and answer it live. We're excited about that. So
for those who are listening, there might be a bit of a staticky aspect. We apologize for that. Like, once again, we're trying to adjust our technology to the future, and we are having difficulties right now, but it will be back to our normal quality next week for sure.
It's kind of like if you're watching Discovery and you're like, man, what is the ship like when you leave, Nielsen in charge? This is it. Like, you want Saru in that seat. And when Saru's hanging out on the planet, this is what you get.
Yeah, everyone should blame Myrriah.
Not to call myself. Yes, it's always Mariah's fault.
She abandoned us. Okay, I'm sorry. She abandoned us. Like, we're here on our own. I feel like Burnham on that planet all by herself, not knowing where they are. That's me. Except Clyde. Clyde's my book.
I was gonna say, what am I? Am I your book? Oh,
there you go.
Touched. All right.
You book me.
All right, well, let's jump into it.
Fast Freak.
All right, little fast freak. So, I was wondering, Paul, I was kind of curious. I was like, what does Myrriah think about kind of the first half of Season 3? And if I could channel my inner Myrriah, I think it would go something little like this.
I'm so sad to miss the podcast tonight, but I'm sure you're going to have a great time with Paul and Clyde. My fast freak is, I love Season 3. It's a great roller coaster. Those first 2 episodes are probably some of my favorite in the series. I love the mercantile in that first episode with Burnham, the introduction of Book. We also get Adira. We get to go to the Trill homeworld and see so much more interesting pieces of their culture. Yeah, I'm having a great time rewatching this season in particular so far. I'm just so excited to be rewatching these pieces in preparation for the final season. I miss you all so much. I hope you have a great time tonight. I'm unfortunately stuck in the Denver airport, but I know you guys will have a great time, and I will see you all next week. Bye-bye.
So, Paul,
So me,
Myrriah she threw out a bunch of things. You want to agree, disagree with her? What were your fast breaks?
I actually love the fact that this season is unencumbered by Star Trek lore. You know, like in that way that they've had to really try to put together how this is going to fit with, like, you know, the original series or next gen and all that stuff. Like, and be a prequel. Like with this going into the future, they got to play a little more, and I think you could see the relaxedness of it in everyone. Everyone seems to be able to find their place in a way that perhaps they were restricted a little bit in the first 2 seasons, I think. So yeah, I think it's a fresher take. Like, you know, it's something that I have no, you know, in some ways, it's something that I feel like Discovery has always wanted to be. Does that make sense? Like, you could have done a Star Trek, you know, in the year 3000, but like setting it in the prequel, but like giving it like world-breaking technology, like lore-breaking technology. That's something that has always been a little rough for me, you know. Whereas like the Spore Drive existing in this timeline or this time frame seems so much more viable. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I like what you said. So overall, I'll say I love season 3. Like, as I started kind of watching it, it just kind of fell back, and I was like, man, this might be my favorite season for a number of reasons. And I think one of the big ones is kind of what you said, right? It in one vein, it felt like rather than try and put on your big brother's like suit jacket, right?
Sure.
And like wear it around and like, oh well, it's mine now. But it never really was yours. Like it was never really tailored for you.
Like the chair thing in right now, but it's okay, Clyde. You can grow into it.
Right. But this season feels like, oh no, now they have it. Now it's you got it tailored and altered just to fit you, and whoever it was before doesn't matter because now it's really yours. That's what the season felt like to me, and I think you're right. I think, you know, the idea, the premise when it was pitched of having this Star Trek prequel, like, was really, really exciting. It was like, oh man, I want to check that out. Like, that's going to be cool. But it always was bumping up against like Kirk, and well, we know the Enterprise is coming. And so it never felt like it was its own thing. And to your point, like, the ship looks cooler, like the technology is cooler, like it just feels different. Now it's like, you know, 1,000 years in the future, it can be whatever it wants to be. And that is amazing. And it does feel lighter. It does feel like the stories are now captivating. There's nothing's holding it back. And I felt like you felt that from like page 1, from scene 1. It just was like, this is different. And for me, it felt like, no, this feels finally like Trek. Like it's new Trek. And I loved it. Like, so not only did I love the introduction of new characters like Book, like I realized Book is amazing, but I also just liked the way the story was. I like a lighter, freer Burnham. You know, we'll get into some of this, but like on the rewatch, my thoughts about Vance are a little bit different too. Like it's fascinating. I can't wait to jump into this, but
sure. No.
But yeah. So let's talk about we'll kind of walk through these 6 episodes. Talk to me about what you thought about the first episode, right? And the first episode was
The Hope is for you. The Hope is you.
The Hope is for you. Part 1.
Hope is you. Part 1. Let's see. This is Burnham jumps jumps to the future, like, does all the cleanup work, and now she's on her this planet alone, trying to figure out, like, she succeeded, life isn't destroyed, so good, go team. But then she finds out that, like, the Federation and the like are kind of like decimated because of the burn. And we start this mystery of what's the burn, what caused the burn, blah 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 blah. And then she's kind of like torn between finding her. She's not torn. She needs to find her crew, and she needs to figure out what the Federation is now, like, if anything. And I think, like, it was a good intro. I feel like, there wasn't a lot of spaceship shooty. So it was a lot of just walking into the market. And the fact that Myrriah likes the market walk, I'm not much of a shopper. So, like, it's not like it's like Orion Marrakesh. But, it's fine. I did like the point where, like, Burnham gets high. That's funny.
It was funny.
And yeah, like, I think in this episode, what I really liked is, because I'm a lore head. Is that a word? I don't know if that's a word. I made up a word, lore head. Like,
sure.
I love the fact that it was the Andorians and Orions that broke away. Like, they became, because the Andorians is one of the founding members of the Federation, and the fact that they wind up being like
a syndicate, like, basically,
they line up with, yeah,
in a crime syndicate.
I think what that shows is, like, 900 years is a long time. I think more than anything, more than the future tech and blah blah, the fact that, like, here's this founding member of the Federation with effectively the bad guys now. And I think, like, 900 years is, it's something.
Yeah, I agree with you. It does show us that really this is a brave new world, right?
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, like, almost from moment one, it's saying whatever you think you know about the Federation, you don't know anymore, right? Like, we're going to turn everything upside down. And that's interesting. Like, that's, to me, like, okay, tell me more. I love this episode, and I was concerned because you're right. There's no pew pew pews. There's pew pew pews, but not from a spaceship. There's more like pew pew pews from a phaser and a big old thing that looks like you've got a mini jet engine on your hand. But I was thinking, like, wow, we're gonna get a whole episode with it's just Burnham, right? Like, we don't see a whiff of the rest of the crew. What's this going to be like? And I got to tell you, I really enjoyed it. Like, I thought the introduction of Book and this new Burnham, especially going back and understanding now, they're setting Burnham up to be different, right? Mm-hmm. She is as far away from her Vulcan heritage that she's ever been. You know what I mean? Like
100%.
Like, she's loose now. Like, she's loose.
Yeah, I think, although, like, from a paper standpoint, like, you're on paper and you go, like, oh, here's this human raised by Vulcan, blah blah blah. I think that is interesting. I don't think she was ever rendered in a way that I found compelling to have for that background. There's always this. It never really meshed with who I feel the character Burnham who I want to be versus what I think is being played, and I don't even know if, like, the actor could really find that balance, and not because of her prowess, but simply because I don't know if that balance was really written. But but now that she's in the future, I feel like you said, like, if you started at season 3, you wouldn't know that she was raised by Vulcans. No. There's very little there that says it, aside from, like, a few expositional type things. But if I told you in season 1 that she was raised by Vulcans, they go, like, oh yeah, I guess she's talking a little weird. I guess she's talking in a way that a Vulcan would talk, and and character study perspective, that's interesting. Like it's really interesting to see a human talk like a Vulcan and like really think like a Vulcan. But like as far as like cinema and for like storytelling and for our hero to be that, I don't think it was ever rendered in that way. You know, you gotta remember, Spock is never the main character. We love Spock, but he's not the main character.
You know, it's interesting, and I'm like, I want to disagree with you because I'm like, are you about to have me criticize one of my favorite shows? And I don't like that, but I have to agree with you because one, when I think about characters that are kind of bicultural in Star Trek, Spock, when I go back and think about the original series or I think about the movies, I never think about the fact that Spock is part human. Ever.
Yeah, sure.
Like he feels and comes across as fully Vulcan, right? The difference between a Spock and a Tuvok to me is I don't know that I could tell you what it was, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So Spock comes around as truly Vulcan. And when I think of someone like Deanna Troi, her, you know, the fact that she's only part Beta Z speaks to a limitation in her ability, right?
Yeah.
Like she can empathize, but she can't read your thoughts, right? So, like, I think when we've seen this before, it's shown up and been very tangible. The thing about it is, Burnham's not part human, part Vulcan. She was just raised by Vulcans, and it just never. And I don't know if it was the way she was written or what, but it's almost like if you don't remind me, I will absolutely forget. And that she comes across as human, but then it did feel like they were constantly reminding us, right? Like it was a storyline that kept coming up. And I think about it kind of going forward. I don't know that starting in season 3, I don't know that it ever comes up again.
Yeah, I mean, there's a very minor thing in episode 7. It's not minor. It's the whole episode where they go to Navir, which is New Vulcan, basically, and they invoke the name of Spock a lot in that episode. And you know, but that's their connection. But in the end, like everyone sees her as human. No one sees her as Vulcan. You know, no one and people interact with her as human, and it's fine. You know, it's totally fine. Like, you know, I think like in season 3 they decided to streamline.
Yeah,
I think in a way like they were doing that season 2 as well. Like, you know, they got rid of Arium, which was a lot of makeup production costs for a background character. You know, and you know, and it's fine. Like, you know, you go like, I gotta save budget. We're not doing a lot with this character. Let's walk him off. And they did that with what's her name in this?
Nan.
That's right. And you go like, oh, you know, we don't have space for her in our narrative, and you know, and her makeup costs too much, as little as it is. You know.
Well, I think that's a good segue. Let's start talking about. Well, one, before we move on to episode 2, any. Do you have one favorite thing about episode 1 you want our listeners, viewers to know? One takeaway?
You know, I think what I really like, I should say it in the best way. No, I mean, like, like, I don't know where they shot it. Like, it looks like maybe, is it Iceland or something? Because it looks like crazy. And it's beautiful. Like, you know, they had all these like different locations, like, you know, because they teleport from, you know, to a bunch of locations, and it all looks kind of crazy like this. So I think it's a beautiful episode.
But not one thing. Like, what about the ending of the episode where you've got the flag unveiling and like Starfleet head, or not headquarters, but this outpost, like. Yeah,
I mean, so the episode starts off with this one guy setting up the Starfleet office, and it ends with the bookmark, or like, here's what happened to the Federation, and we're still here, and blah blah blah, and it's very sentimental, like, you know, the unfurling of the flag, and you're going like, yeah, like, you know, for all of it, like, I'm a bit of control. I'm a bit of Leland. So like I don't know if my heartstrings necessarily work that way, but I respect the programming.
I wanted to like. I kind of thought, to be, if I'm being completely honest, I thought that scene was a little bit long.
Mhm.
And I was like I wanted to get it, and it made sense to me. Like I was like, oh, we're really selling this. I'm all into Starfleet, and it's meaningful, and I'm upholding the character, and that's fantastic. But I was like, okay, like I wanted to go. I want to have a little awe moment, and I was like, that's cool. Overall, I think for me, my favorite part of this episode was just Book, right?
Mhm.
Like it was a little campy, it was silly, like you talk about like Burnham getting high on the truth serum, right? Like it was funny, right? Her getting eaten by the space worm, or and then spit out. Like this was a fun episode, and I thought, what a way to take a couple risks but deliver on kind of the first episode of the season. So
Yeah, no.
all right, so you started talking about Ariam, kind of the transition from Ariam to Nielsen and kind of different things. So let's move on to episode 2.
Episode 2.
What was your thought about episode 2? So in episode 2, Discovery comes through. This is Far From Home. So Discovery comes through the wormhole there. I mean, poor it was like Kara dang near broke the ship.
Mhm.
But they make it. You've got ice parasites. You've got like psycho space western. Like there's a lot going on here. What did you think of episode 2?
I thought it's one of my favorite episodes of the first 6 of this of the first 6, and partly because I really enjoyed Tilly's and Saru and Giorgio in the saloon.
Okay.
Like I feel like if this is Tilly's and Giorgio's season, like it's for me. Like I'm like every time Giorgio is on screen, I'm like going, she's so fun to watch. And every time I see Tilly, I go like, you go, girl. Saru is coming to his own, and that's great. But and Burnham is always like spending half the season going like, am I good enough, or should I be here, or some internal turmoil, which is fine, but but it's hard for me to cheer for. I can empathize for, but it's hard for me to cheer for. Like Detmer, like is like with her, like I flew off my console trauma, and I'm going like, okay, I get it. You have PTSD and you're not talking to anyone about it. Like there's only so much you can show me before I go like, dude, talk to someone. Like I at some point you're being irresponsible now, So in that way, Giorgio gets to stay Giorgio for most of it, and she gets to change a little bit too. Like there are 2 episodes that are my favorite episodes of the season in the second half of the season. Like where Giorgio goes back to the mirror universe. I mean, they are. It's not just my favorite episodes of the season. It's like they're 2 of my favorite episodes of all Trek. So Giorgio really gets her thing, and for all of it, like. I don't know, like later on this season, Tilly gets to become number 1, and I'm going like, dude, she's a cadet. There have been a lot of people waiting in line. I don't care how smart you are. I'm probably not going to take orders from a 20-year-old if who can barely like string a sentence together. I'm just saying. I'm just saying, like, it's probably going to be a weird thing to have someone who could barely put a sentence together, at times under stress. And go like, okay, we're getting under fire. What do we do? Now, if it was Killy, all the way.
I mean,
this is a Tilly specific thing. If it was Killy, like, I'm in line 100%.
Look, I love this episode.
Yeah, it's a good episode. It's totally fun.
Well, and I think when you want to see an ensemble, there's a lot about this episode that works, right? And so, you know, as Pim Griffey in the chat says, Jet Reno was amazing in this episode.
Yeah, all sitting down too.
All sitting down. I think one thing that I was left with a couple things when I was rewatching this episode. I'll say I am starting to appreciate Saru more on the rewatch than I ever did at the first run, because I think the first time through, I just kept thinking, like, can we get to Burnham being captain? Like, I'm over this holding her back. Like, it felt like when the series was pitched, we were expecting her to be captain. And here we are in season 3, and you're still holding it from us. Like, I felt like at the time, I was just like angry about it. I was kind of like, no. But I think kind of going back and rewatching it in this episode in particular, I was just starting to think, by this point, I'm like, no, Saru has to be a certain way. And that really does free up Burnham to be Burnham.
Mm-hmm.
But it also made me look back and go, what if we rewound all the way to the beginning and said, you know what? We're not going to do the head fake. We give you Giorgio as captain and then kill her in the first episode. What if Giorgio was captain, like the original Prime Universe Giorgio was captain for this series?
Sure.
Like,
that's what I thought for a while.
That could have been, I'm just thinking about, like, if they had played it straight.
Yeah. That
could have been an amazing show.
Yeah. I that's what I thought the show was going to be, because I didn't know who, like, I didn't know who else to really look at. Like, Michelle Yeoh was the big, the big actor. So I go like, oh, well, this would be interesting. Asian captain. That's what I thought. Huh.
I mean, here's the thing. I'm just like you. I walk away and I go, Michelle Yeoh, every time she steps on screen, is the best actor on screen. Like, she's amazing. Like, she's just, what she does is phenomenal. So I think she could have carried this show as a straight up Star Trek captain in the line of all the others. Like, I think that could have been amazing. But it wouldn't have been as, like, she's more fun as Giorgio.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, I also feel that, like, Discovery needed to be what it needed to be. I think in a way, like, if we played a straight Giorgio, it would be more in the tradition of like Next Gen or TOS. And I think for all of it, like, Star Trek needed a new audience.
Yeah.
I think, like, just because it would have been great for me doesn't mean it would be great for the longevity of Trek. And so I like, this Trek for me is like Strange, Brave New Worlds right now. That's the Trek for me. Like, and Lower Decks. Those are the two that like it's not the nostalgia bait that Picard is. It's not, it's Brave New Worlds and,
Strange New World.
Brave New World.
Good book.
Yeah, and Lower Decks. But I feel like there are people who really go like, I started Star Trek with Discovery, and I feel like Discovery is my Trek. And there's, if they only like Discovery, like, there's nothing other than Discovery except for Discovery. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I mean, I look at this and go, without the path that Discovery took, we don't get Strange New World. And Anson Mount as Pike, it's just that show is a great show.
Yeah.
But I like Discovery quite a bit. I like what they're able to do, particularly in this third season. Like you mentioned, what would have been like if we had started in season 3? Yeah. Like, this would be a great show if it started in season 3. Right? You could start here and still kind of walk in. Now you'll miss some of the backdrop, but it feels like everything that was started in the first 2 seasons, with the exception of Michelle Yeoh, largely is a footnote. right? Like
Sure.
I feel like for the first 2 seasons we had this whole like Burnham, is rebellious and still traits of mutineer.
Mhm.
All that stuff is gone now,
Yeah, no,
right?
I think like it just reminds me of Parks and Rec in a way. So
Okay.
Parks and Rec is a TV show. It's a comedy. It's and what happened is the first 2 seasons were not doing what exactly it needed to do. And what the writers did was they corrected their course and they got rid of some actors. They added some new actors. They changed the dynamic so that it became what we now know as the juggernaut that was Parks and Rec. And I think, like with here, like like take Saru for example. I think the idea of someone like who is first officer who's always afraid because they're genetically afraid. I think that's a pretty interesting thing to explore. Did it work for like a day to day, like 24 episodes or like 12 episodes? It probably was more problematic to have than to streamline it. And so they did. They went and adjusted. Goes, okay, let's just make it so that he's not such a coward, and he's just like a normal, tall, 8-foot like horse-looking dude. Great, boom, done, and it works out. It might not be as nuanced, but it's a lot more. There's a lot more meat There's a lot more meat on the bones to play with.
I like the word that you use, streamline, right? Because I do feel like the themes and the motifs that we see in Trek feel a little bit more familiar, right? And what I mean by that is you've got clear good guys and bad guys now, right? Yep. Like from the moment that Book steps on the scene, you're not confused that maybe he's a good guy, maybe he's a bad guy. Like, I'm not sure. He moves in a way that you go, this is a good guy. And this is a misunderstanding. Like, there's just something about him that you immediately know. And so I think we're getting back to that. Like, I hate to say I like your streamline better than like simplified, right?
Yeah.
But it is kind of clear cut. So,
well, you go, Clyde.
No, go ahead. Shoot.
I was gonna say, like, there's a thing that like you can do when writing, right? Like, if you make characters really nuanced, then you're focused on the characters. But if you make characters archetypical, you can focus on the story. And TV shows have to do both, and it's finding that balance that becomes interesting. Like like when you can get that balance, that's when a show will sing. And I feel like in here they've, at least season 3, they got that to be the right balance. Anyway,
I agree. Yeah, no, I enjoyed this. I like this. So episode 3. So in episode 3, we've now Burnham is fully kind of connected.
She's back.
She's with the Discovery. She's got Book tagging along a little bit. It makes me laugh a little bit. One of my favorite parts is when she's talked about Book, right?
Mm-hmm.
He shows up on the bridge, and I love it because it's like, what is it? Owo looks at Detmer, and Detmer just kind of raises her eyebrow like, you ain't slick. I see you. Like, I thought it was funny. Like, it's this familiar kind of like, ooh, she's been hanging up with him for a year. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it was it really also helped us understand that like a year is a long time. Like it's hard. I think sometimes it's hard because for us, we got her on her first day in the future. And then we get this fast forward a whole year. But I don't know that you feel it.
Well, like the second time I did, because you saw the hair grow. Like you had the I thought I think that's pretty hilarious. Like, but yes, I didn't catch it the first time. There are a lot of things I didn't catch the first time, actually. Like it's very dense in order to keep it going. Anyway, sorry, Clyde. Sorry to interrupt.
No. I'm with you. I think what was interesting to me is in the way she portrays a new Burnham.
Mm-hmm.
We get to see that a lot has happened in that year, right? There's some subtle things they do, right? Like from time to time, Book and Burnham refer to like these memories that they have, this history that they have.
Mm-hmm.
And it's cute. Like, you remember that time, or, oh, we should try this. Like, that's all cute. But it's really in the portrayal of Burnham that you feel like, okay, time has really passed.
Yeah. I mean, she did a good job, like, with showing that she she's seen stuff, man. She's seen stuff. And I think she's done a very good job with that.
Yeah. What did you think about the whole like return to Earth?
Like, this is where I like it's totally fitting that Earth would go we're good, shields, like for whatever reason, in Babylon 5 and a lot of sci-fi, where Earth is a part of this big thing, like a lot of sci-fi has Earth going like, nah, we're good, and just go like and be isolationists, probably because in a way, like that is how, because I watch American shows and I feel like American shows tend to have always been like, America's been fairly isolationist by just geography. There are two oceans between us, and the only two countries that are really next to us, either is Canada, which has like the population of California, or Mexico, which is mostly desert. So we're kind of always safe. And so in that way, we always want that sense of safety. And so like it doesn't strike me as weird that like all of a sudden like some calamity happens and like we shut our doors and go like, we gotta take care of our own. So like, and so I watch that and I go like, yeah, Earth being Earth.
Yeah, it was, I'll be honest, it was a surprise to me. Like, I had to come to terms with the fact that this is Earth, right? Like, and I was just on a podcast with Mike Moody Garcia where we were talking about First Contact, right? And so I'm looking at and reviewing the first time that Earth goes into space and they meet the Vulcans, and it's this whole dynamic of like, this is Earth, like this is what we do. Right, the Federation's headquarters, Starfleet's headquarters, is literally on Earth. Like, this is supposed to be everything, and yeah, it's still like you look up and they're like, nope. And it's not just hey, our doors are closed, go away. It's much more of a, two guns out, like, get off my porch, like take another step, and I'm gonna start firing before I ask you what your name is. Like, it's like, I was shocked by that, and it was just kind of like very standoffish, very aggressive, like not just isolationist, but like, like doomsday prepper kind of like.
Well, I mean, this is what happens. Like, I always feel that people, like, they did the experiment where you take someone who's really liberal, and then you put them under a lot of stress, and they become more conservative, or at the very least more protective of what they have. And that's literally in your DNA. You're designed to like be protective when there's scarcity, because if you don't, you die. It's a good thing to have. It's not a bad thing to have. It's not helpful if there's ample stuff, right? And we like to look at the future, like in this, where in Star Trek particularly, where there's ample stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Federation we know gets to be the Federation because it's rich as all get out. Like, oh, you need gold? Let me print you out some gold. Let me,
I got ships, I got people, I got supplies. Like, you're struggling, I can come help you.
Like,
with the Federation.
The Federation got privilege.
Yes.
And with that, like, you get to be noble. You get to be all these things. You get to be generous. You get to look down on people who, but when all those, like, is this in Deep Space Nine? Like, it's one of my favorite lines, and it comes, like, it's weird in Deep Space Nine. Like, my favorite characters are the Ferengis for some reason. I don't really love the Ferengis, but and Quark goes like, so what happened is they're at the Dominion War. This is the siege of AR, whatever. Anyway, they're at the Dominion War, and Quark and Nog are on the front line, and Nog is like really enamored with all these heroes of the Federation fighting against the Dominion and this trench warfare kind of thing. And then Quark goes, dude, like, look around. This is not the Federation that you know. Like, these humans that you admire so much, like, you take away their creature of comforts, you take away, their holodecks, there's a warm shower, some food, and they become as vicious as any Klingon. And so, like, and this is where I see, like, this is post-burn life, baby.
Well, it's interesting as you say that, because I think what's coming to me is what we're looking at in season 3 is a post-apocalyptic but high-tech world, right? Like, if you think about any post-apocalyptic TV show or movie, you had people who were high worth, right? The people who were in the power. Well, when that thing that comes that neutralizes all of those things, well, there's a dynamic shift.
Sure.
And it's fascinating to me in this season, because what we're starting to see is, right, it is easy, to your point, Paul, it's easy to have those high ideals and take the moral high ground and be generous when you have excess, right?
Yeah.
But the minute that you don't, it's like, okay, well, let's see who you are now.
But you go down to Earth in episode 3, and it's nice as hell.
Yeah, it is.
I got
it. It is. Because they're like, you can't have mine, right?
That's right. Like, I'm going like, oh, well, I mean, that Earth looks pretty good. It looks better than what I got now.
No, that's a good point. Chupi had a comment that I thought was really great. She said, it is very clear that for the first time in Burnham's life, she didn't have to live up to anyone's expectation but her own. And it really freed her. I agree 100%. Like,
agreed. But at the same time, like, that they, Chupi, like, I 100% agree with that. But, like, they say all the time, like, she's a responsibility hoarder.
Yeah. Well, I think part of it is it's almost like being on vacation a little bit, right? Look, if you're a leader, if you're built like that, if you're disciplined, if duty and that responsibility is part of who you are, and I think ultimately with Burnham, it's just part of who she is, then the vacation's nice, right? Like, it's nice to step out and, like, okay, I don't have to worry about it. Like, for a year, her only thing was to hang out with Book and do whatever it is that she wanted to do, right? To make her own decisions. That made sense. That was nice and easy. But, it's kind of like she was home alone, right? For a while. And then all of a sudden, the family shows back up. And you've got to decide, like, oh, man, did I really like that life? It was great. But is this who I really am? And I think Burnham starts to realize that who she is someone who's in the uniform. And I think that kind of takes us into episode 4 a little bit. So in episode 4, we get to meet Admiral Vance.
Episode, don't we go to Trill first?
Do we go to Trill first? Okay, yeah, maybe we go to Trill first. Okay, so we go to Trill.
Yeah.
What do you think of Trill? What did you think of this episode?
Like, Trills have never been my favorite species. They're like, I'm gonna tell you right now, if I had like a 900-year-old symbiote, in me, I'd be pretty confident, but I'd also be a dick. I'm just saying, like, because I would know so much. I'd be so confident. Imagine like I'd be like Super Bezos, Super Musk, and go like, why would I, it was just, it would not be, I'm not a good person, everyone.
No, listen, I think you're being real though, right? Like, and the reality is, like, if you are a 900-year-old person, you've seen a lot, right? And here's the amazing thing to me about Trills most of the time is that they do a remarkable job of not talking down to everybody else like they're children.
And that's the
Right.
thing. Like for me, I go, like, I don't know if I buy it. That's the thing. Like, there's only one Trill that really did that, and that was like when like Jadzia got her symbiote kidnapped in like season 1, and it went to like this other guy, and he was like a nice. He wasn't nice. He's very, what you call it. He was very mercenary, trying to steal the Trill, the symbiote, and then when he gets put into him, he becomes like an absolute dick. Like, I'm something Dax now, and you're like going, yeah, that's how you'd be. Like, anyway, that's neither here nor there. It feels very DS9. It feels very, like back to the bug puddles. Yep, there we go.
Kirk says, "Forget Me Not did a good job of following up what was revealed in DS9, that a lot more Trill could be hosts than they admitted."
Yeah. And so, it's fun.
I'm gonna be honest. I thought this was an okay episode, right? I didn't think it was a bad episode by any means. I thought it was some nice touch points, but coming off of the first 3, I wanted more of that. Mm-hmm. Like, to me, the action in this episode was a bit of a slowdown, and so I was really like, oh, okay, all right, like,
there you go. It's okay. They all can't be winners.
So then we move into episode 5, right? So now Adira knows exactly who they are. I'm going to use their pronouns even before they start using their pronouns, but Adira knows exactly who they are, and knows their past as, what was the name?
Gray.
No, not Gray. Tall. And the 6 previous hosts that they've had, and then they show up and they're coming home to the Federation. And if I remember correctly, it was a wonderful reunion, and it was like singing songs, and everybody was so happy to see them. That's what happened, right? Like, it was just kumbaya and break out the cookies when they made it to Starfleet. That's what happened, right?
I would say that, like, that's not what happened. But like, I'm going to tell you right now, if you disappeared for like 5 years and like you sank at sea or whatever, and then you came back 5 years later and go, hey Paul, it's been a while, like, like, let's go do the podcast. I go like, who are you? I'm Clyde. And I go like, there's Clyde died. It goes, no, but like, that was a cover up. I go, really? I mean, you're doing your due diligence, right?
Well, I think it's an extension of what we were just talking about in terms of this post-apocalyptics, like, everything changed. The first time around, I remember the discussion on this podcast was all about, like, Vance is sus. Like, that was the refrain constantly throughout the entire 3rd season. It was just like, yo, we were looking at Vance and we're thinking, this dude is just another in a long line of bad roles, right? Like, that's what it was.
Name 5 bad roles.
I can't.
Yeah, because it's a narrative that you perpetrate. You and your kind.
Please.
It's PP, pre-Paul on the podcast.
No.
PPP.
No, everybody knows they're bad roles. But I think what I now see is this different perspective. I'm looking at Vance and going, it's a new world, right? Like, this is a world where you have to cover up and hide where your location is, or you have a planetary shield. Like, there are people who are constantly coming for you, and he's looking and trying to figure out, like, are you for or against us? Like, are you going to help us, or are you just a headache, right? Like, you show up in this 1,000-year-old ship, and
I'm
I'm
gonna
just
tell you right
supposed to
now,
take your word for it.
if someone pulled up in a 1,000-year-old raft, because I don't know what they had 1,000 years ago, and it could like teleport anywhere in the world, that'd be rocking.
I mean, fair enough. So I see Vance in a different light, but
Huh.
it was kind of cool to see the new, the new ships and the new tech and things like that. So I dug it, but
Voyager
I was
J, like you have a hard time. I don't want to speak at you, but like I don't want to tell you your life. But you have a hard time when like there are characters that challenge the protagonists. Like you had a hard time with Shaw, and I was going the
you're
whole
right.
time. I was going. Shaw is the man. He's the only. He sacrificed his life for the crew. He's doing his job, and all you did was like, man, you're not giving my guys privilege that they deserve. I'm going like, Clyde, be better.
Listen, I'm loyal to my people.
Yeah, no, I see it. I see it.
I, and you're right. Like Vance and Shaw are cut from a similar cloth. That they come in and they have a very different perspective than your traditional hero arc, right? They are. It's interesting. Like it reminds me of the action movies, right? Where you've got the hero and there's a car chase. And at the end of the car chase, they've got the bad guy, right? But then you've got to turn around and there's a captain in there, somebody going, yeah, you got the bad guy, but did you see what you did to the city? Right? Like you dang near broke a building in two, right? We got people rushed to the hospital because you're driving through buildings and all this other stuff. There is this both of them kind of came into this, they brought this realism to our idealistic hero sci-fi fantasy that says the hero, like, don't worry about the consequences, the hero is the hero. And that was a little hard, I'll be honest. That was at times it's hard for me to go, yeah, but they're the heroes. Like you got to see the bigger picture, right? And the bigger picture often is they save the universe.
Sure,
Advance literally looks at Burnham and it's like, well, if what you say is true, then we all owe you a huge thanks.
Mm-hmm, sure.
Thank you. That changes nothing, right? Thank you for bringing me the discovery. I could always use another ship. I'm gonna split your crew up and do what's best. Like that's kind of his mode, and I understand it, even if I didn't love it.
No, I'll say like this: like if everyone was like Shaw, or everyone were like Vance, what you'd have is probably order, and eventually the organization would fall apart.
The world would collapse.
But if you had everyone like Burnham or Picard or Riker, you'd have chaos. You have chaos, and once in a while, one of them does a good thing and saves the universe. I don't know which one is better. I'm not saying one is better than the other, but like I feel like it's an ecosystem, and I respect the ecosystem.
I'm with you. There's a certain amount of balance that's important. So, all right. So episode 4 is Die Trying, and largely what we're talking about at this point is we're gonna go save some seeds.
Yeah, like
and Non has decided to stay with the seed ship.
Yeah, another one that wasn't my favorite, just because I didn't like the premise of like Team Chaos. Yep. Like I didn't like the idea that there's this random Noah's Ark ship, Star Trek ship, just floating around. It just seems like really weird. Weird in a way that you're like, oh, I don't know if this makes a lot of sense to me. But I'll go with this conceit. And then like it's really like a ghost. I won't say a ghost ship, but like it's people going into a haunted ship and figuring it out.
Yeah,
and it was more not an episode like, hey, I can see what they're trying to do. It's trying to be like, we've lost connection. We've lost connection, and now that we're here, we have to find a way to get ourselves either back or find the new balance. Because like on the ship, everyone's falling apart too, right?
Mhm.
So like I understand thematically what it was, and I respect, and it probably needs to be there. I think Colbert has the what you call it, has a star line in this episode where he goes like, hey, in order for us to be okay, we have to admit that we weren't okay, and
Right.
and I think that's I'm not. You go, Clyde. I'm over talking. I apologize.
You're fine. I think for me, this is, I don't want to call it a non-episode, but it moves. It moved a little bit. And I think the important piece here was you needed an episode to show Vance and everyone else the value of discovery, right? And so you gave them, they keep saying, we're a scientific vessel. So you gave them a science problem to solve, right? What you didn't do is go, all right, well, we're going to put you into the fight and throw you up against some bad guys. This is what it was. Like, it was a mystery. They solved the mystery. They figured out the puzzle, and they
saved some lives.
Saved some lives. They did it. They came back. It was fine, right? I think, I liked Non. My whole thing is, I feel like you have to have a Worf Odo type of character in your team, right? That is you're the person who is a little bit aggressive, not afraid to, the muscle, right? You got to have your B.A. Baracus in your team.
Like, who was that in the original series?
I mean, oddly enough, it was Kirk.
Yeah.
Right.
You make your point.
And I feel like they keep getting rid of that person here in Discovery. Like, I look at him like, Non was your security officer, right? Like, Giorgio is your, hey, we need somebody in this fight.
Karate.
And, you're going to get rid of her. Like, it's just, Willa. Like, I thought they were going to keep Willa around, who's the Starfleet chief of security.
Yeah.
Nope. So it's just, I'm looking going, but I like that person, because when you get into a battle, you need to have that person. And while Burnham can fight for sure, and Burnham can be a hothead, it's not enough, right? Like, Worf was always like, his finger was always like right on that knife. Like, I'm like, it's taking everything in me not to slit your throat, right? Like, that's Worf.
All I know is what you're describing. You're revealing a lot about yourself, Clyde. You're like, just so you know, if I have my choice, I'm going to choose violence.
No, it's not
sorry.
that I'm
space violence. I want the option of space violence.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. And Giorgio has this line. I think it's in the second episode, right? And she says, he's a bully. Or maybe it's in, actually.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
I remember it.
He's a bully, and the only thing a bully respects is a bigger bully.
Yep.
Sometimes you need to have a bigger bully as a tool in your toolkit. That's all I'm saying.
I
right?
understand. I understand.
Only because sometimes especially in this post-apocalyptic world, you have people who aren't going to respond to, like, Saru's always like, nope, diplomacy, we should talk at first. And I'm thinking, in this world, by the time you finish that sentence, everybody's dead.
Yeah, no, there you go. I'm a choose violence type person. Like I said, we agree. Like, I'm of the people on the podcast. If you had to pick someone who was a Terran, it's probably going to be me.
All right, so we're getting up on that hour mark. All right, so there's Diatribe, and then finally we've got our episode 6, which is Scavengers.
Now, okay, so first of all, the glow up for Discovery, love it. Like, it opens with that.
I love it.
The glow up, I was like, well done. This episode is infamous in my household. Because, like, quickly, basically, like, a book has the clues to the burn. Burnham has to go, save Book. She and Giorgio succeed. Blah blah blah. That's the thing. That's the episode. Great, it's fun. Blah blah blah. So one of the things that was very interesting in this episode was my wife and I, we were watching it the first time like live, and we see Book, captured, and he enters carrying this heavy metal thing, and with this Bajoran, and the Bajoran's hurt, and blah blah blah. And the most notable thing about this Bajoran is that he's male and he's Asian. Male Asian Bajoran who has lines. And so he drops the what you call it. For those who don't know, who are on podcast, I am Asian. I am.
You are?
Asian, I am an Asian
I
male.
had no idea.
And so, he's carrying the heavy metal. He drops it because he has his busted elbow or whatever. And Book goes, "Hey, take it easy." And he goes like, "Oh, I got it." And the moment he said, "I got it," I go to my wife, "He's dead." And she goes, "What?" I go, "Well, he's Asian and he's a male and he has a line. He can't stay. He has to be made an example of." She goes, "What are you talking about? Like, dude, it's just there's no reason to cast him as an Asian unless you're gonna do. It's a diversity cast. He's the token Asian. You've never seen an Asian Bajoran." And I go, "Oh," and she goes like, "I think you might be crazy." 5, 4, 3, boom! His head explodes.
Yes, I did take something else slightly different away from that, but
So
I mean,
I just thought
now I gotta go back and watch Discovery to see if I can find an Asian Bajoran, just so I can say, "Hey, Paul, I found 6."
you can watch all of Deep Space Nine. Good luck. No Asian Vulcans.
Really?
I'm just saying.
Okay.
Go through all Star Trek. Like, prove me wrong. It's okay.
Listen, I believe you. It's just now we're calling into question,
Kurtzman
Kurtzman and his HR team. Like, who's handling your diversity?
No Asian male Vulcans. Like,
Okay.
or at least East Asian. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Like,
Okay.
and for me, I'm looking at this. I'm going like, oh, this is progress.
Okay.
Like, watching an Asian male head get blown off. You go like, this is how you now you're in the conversation.
Hey, listen, it was not that long ago that I'd be like, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, I mean, like,
Yes.
I remember when Tuvok came and like a black Vulcan? Vulcans aren't black, and you're like, calm down. Just everyone, just calm down. It's gonna be okay.
All right. Outside of that, what did you think of this episode?
I mean, I think it's Giorgio bait. Like, I think Giorgio's great, and I like the duo of them. They're having so much fun.
Yeah. I thought this was a pretty good episode. I mean, we're really now getting kind of introduced to the Emerald Chain, and we're getting introduced to Osira. Like, it's we're kind of seeing they're setting this up to go, hey, here's a bad force in the galaxy. So I thought it was interesting. And not my favorite episode, but I thought it was a pretty decent episode. Like, I thought it was fun.
It's a good episodic episode. Like basically, here's one adventure, and we're gonna do this adventure, and we're gonna give you a little nugget at the end that'll tie it. Like, it should be that. It really should.
I gotta agree with Chupi again. Book ship is amazing, and I love it. Book does have a pretty awesome ship. Like,
I don't know. Like, it is interesting. Like, I don't know if I love the Transformer aspect of it. Like, it's pretty cool to watch. Yes. But
how do you say the word Transformer and say I don't love? Like, regardless of any of the words you use in that sentence, Transformer, like, to paraphrase Giorgio, you had me a Transformer. Like, that's all you need for it to be great.
And Transformers, they tend to be more than meets the eye. But the thing is, like, I look at it, I go like, like, why would you make a ship like that? Why would you make a ship that could go Lego forward at any moment? Like, Lego explode and come back together. it's such a nuanced, such a very like, as an engineer, I don't think you'd ever want to do that.
Absolutely, you'd want to do it.
Maybe in some unless
anytime there's an asteroid field, that shit becomes awesome.
I will give you that, but like, what space person who has a ship that can do that would continually go into an asteroid field?
Yeah,
at high speed.
And
Who would do that?
And it cloaks.
Yeah, no,
and
I get
and you
it.
got like a remote control. Listen, I'm like, we're not gonna agree. I love the ships.
It reminds me of Martian Manhunter. He goes, he can read minds and change shapes and turn invisible, and he can do all these things. Go, yeah, I guess, but then, and to Chupi's point, I see how useful it is. That's what writers can do. They can make anything. You can give me a toothbrush. I could kill a dragon if the writing's right. I don't disagree with that.
Listen, we're not going to agree on this. I love the ship. I thought the ship was great. I think Book Ship was great. I think the new Discovery ship is amazing.
Yeah, no, I can see the new Discovery ship. I like the new interface. It looks really cool. It seems very simple. No more heroin injectors. That's great. It's great.
I still think the one thing about this kind of the cast that makes me laugh, and I'm looking for it, and I realize I actually did a pretty good job, is how there's this sense of like Ariam left, Nilsson showed up, and it's like she's been there the whole time. And so I was looking, ready to jump and pounce on, all right, you took it too far. Like there's a moment where when Burnham comes back and everybody's hugging her, and I was like, they better not have Nilsson hug her like my long lost friend I can't wait to see, right? And they didn't. And then these moments where I was like, okay, I was looking for them, and they, I thought it was interesting that they were like, kind of early on, they gave her command, right?
Well, to be fair, I feel that like Erdem has earned her place on Discovery, right?
Yes.
And more than that, for them, it was like a day later, right? Like she flew into the, they all said, yes, pick me. I'm going to go with you into blah, 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 into the unknown. And the next day they're on a planet with like parasitic ice, which is a thing apparently. I don't know. And before, so like they think Burnham's the same Burnham they saw, when she went to the little wormhole, but not.
Yeah, I mean, and look, I'm not saying that like the actress who played Ariam is the actress who played Nilsson. And one of the things that I noticed is like when kind of on rewatch, Ariam was a senior officer, so frequently she would be sitting in the chair when Saru and Burnham and everybody else was gone. Like she was in chair. So it made sense. It made sense that Nilsson kind of would get that nod too. But I also like that. I think in the last episode, Burnham they went down to the ship, and she was like, Bryce, you got the con. Like it moved around a little bit, and it does feel like this is the first season where the bridge crew is getting more to do.
Yeah, no, it's like I believe that the difference between 70s Trek and today's Trek is more of team leadership. There's still a leader, there's still a person in command, but like the burden of keeping it all together is within the team, not within for all of it. It was a Kirk show, right? Kirk tells you do this, and it works out because you did it because you're Kirk. And same with Picard, and same with Janeway, and same with Cisco, and same with the best captain there ever was, Archer.
Oh my goodness, no. I think that you're right though. There's a certain peer leadership. We're a part of a team. We all have to, step up at times. There's that. And my kind of final thought on this episode in particular is just, and Chupi says this is the episode we start to see JoJo has a serious problem. I was a little bothered by this. I thought they did a good job, but my issue was this is where we see the cracks, right? Because I'm loving Giorgio, and I'm going, they've got a different plan. Maybe Michelle Yeoh is booked, but they're not going to this isn't going to be a regular. They're not going to keep her. And I'm going, here we go.
Yeah, no. For me, I was surprised we got so much Giorgio. Like, I thought once Philippa Captain died, I was going, okay, that they did the Drew Barrymore in Scream.
Mm-hmm.
And then that was it. Okay, way to go. And then she came back as Emperor. Goes, okay, well, we have her for a little bit here. Okay, she's sticking around. Oh, look, she's here in season 2. She's just sticking around, and and I'm like, wow, that's pretty great. And so when she leaves in season 3, spoiler, she's gonna leave in this season. Everyone,
Paul's favorite episode.
I feel that that I really got to miss her. And
agreed.
And truth be told, I'm glad we had Tara Giorgio over Captain Giorgio.
I'm not going to co-sign that.
I understand, but here's my point. My point would be, as amazing as a captain that she could have been, you already know what kind of captain she's going to be. She's going to be an exemplary captain of Starfleet. So, in a way, she's not bringing anything new. Whereas bringing the Emperor of the Terran Empire in, as a regular on your crew, that's a new dynamic. And Discovery is about discovery.
See what you did there. I'll say this about Giorgio. What I love about Emperor Giorgio is that is the character that Burnham needed to really grow, right?
I like that, Clyde.
I think in part because until we are challenged with the opposite of our beliefs, it's hard to know what you really believe, right?
Sure. That's why I'm here on the podcast. just so you can know what you truly believe, Clyde.
But I mean that I think Burnham has been a character that has done what she's supposed to do her whole life, right? Until this moment, I think Giorgio represents this. Why are you doing it that way? Is that do you really believe that's what you should do? And we see that sometimes it gets her into trouble and sometimes it gets everyone else out of trouble, that Burnham is not afraid to kind of color outside the lines.
Yeah, I think if you put it that way, like Emperor Giorgio is basically saying, hey, dude, you are more than you are embracing. There's a darkness in you that is a source of strength and value. And the more you ignore that, the more you are diminishing not just yourself, but like the people around you. And she's a constant reminder of that, and that's good. But truth be told, she probably got to the point where Burnham didn't need her anymore.
Yeah.
She kind of grew up.
Yeah. All right, Paul, why don't we wrap up? Myrriah's going to kill us for being on this journey for so long.
Yeah. Remember, Myrriah hated this season, all the seasons. She's never been a fan of Discovery. She's always been a person, I've always said to her, this is a very important show. And she's always been like, Paul, you don't know jack shit.
Listen, she loves the first part of this season. It'll be interesting about the second part. Speaking of which, we're going to do season 3 part 2 next week. February 29th is when we'll record that. So Myrriah should be back. We should have the whole team, hopefully, to do that one. It'll be interesting because I think, Chupi just said in the chat, it's a dense season. To me, it almost feels like there are 3 separate seasons in this one season. So it'll be interesting to see kind of this next part. Yeah. So, Paul, why don't you remind them again where they can subscribe and do that stuff?
Oh, well, let me do that. Hey, Remind them, you guys, to subscribe and rate and review on Apple at StarTrekPod.co and Patreon. And I guess follow us on X. Thanks, Karen, for helping us on X.
Thank you, Karen. Yeah.
I guess
so. Yeah, that's it. Anything else you want to say before we sign off?
No, not that I know of. I think you did a great job captaining. As much crap as I give you, I would not be here without you.
Well, thank you.
You're my Burnham.
And you're my book. Or my grudge. You give me my grudge too.
Oh, did you hear that, guys? Clyde just fat shamed me. Well done, Clyde. Well done. OMG.
We'll get to it, but I will say one of the things I'm looking forward to in season 5 is I'm trying to figure out the importance of grudge. Sure. I mean,
isn't Book in jail?
She's a queen. Okay.
Isn't Book going to be in jail?
Probably. We'll see.
Okay, here we go.
But is it grudge?
Wait. Chippy says Star Trek Cruise started. Check out our feed for photos. Are you on the cruise, Chippy?
Oh, wow.
Well, we'll check it out.
Okay.
Okay, everyone.
All right. Until next time.
Prosper or something like that.
Yeah.
Do that thing.
Be good to each other.